The music stops. All eyes turn toward the back of the hall. Amy's heart skips a beat as the doors creak open. A figure steps inside, tall, still, and hauntingly familiar. The air changes. It's the kind of silence that makes your chest heavy, like the world itself has stopped breathing. For years, Amy believed he was gone forever. But here he is, Ty Borden, standing in the doorway of her wedding. The sun poured its golden light across Heartland Ranch, bathing everything in a warm, almost dreamlike glow. The open field had been transformed into a small paradise. White chairs lined up neatly, wildflowers wrapped around wooden arches, and the gentle sound of a violin filled the air. The scent of roses mixed with the sweet smell of hay from the nearby stables. It was the kind of beauty that only Heartland could offer, simple, honest, and full of love. Amy stood inside the small cabin, her reflection trembling in the mirror. The white lace of her wedding dress hugged her shoulders, and a single tear rolled down her cheek. Not of sadness, but of the weight of everything she'd lived through. Today was supposed to be the start of something new. After years of heartbreak, she had finally found someone who made her feel safe again, Nathan. He was kind, steady, the kind of man who didn't make promises he couldn't keep. Everyone said he was good for her. Maybe he was. Outside, Jack stood with Lou and Tim, trying to hide their emotions behind nervous smiles. Georgie adjusted the flowers by the aisle, stealing glances toward the house. There was joy in their hearts, but also a strange quietness, like a whisper that something wasn't right. Jack could feel it in his bones, the same way he used to feel when a storm was about to roll over the hills. "Ready, sweetheart?" Tim's voice broke the silence inside the cabin. Amy turned and nodded, her eyes glistening. "As ready as I'll ever be," she whispered. He offered his arm, and together they stepped out into the light. The crowd rose to their feet, and the soft murmur of excitement spread through the air. The moment had come. Nathan stood at the end of the aisle, his face calm, but his hands clenched. His eyes met Amy's, and for a brief moment, everything else faded. It was just them, two souls who had found each other after years of loneliness. The music played, the wind brushed against her veil. Amy took a deep breath, one step at a time, toward her future. But something inside her still ached. She couldn't name it. Maybe it was fear, or maybe it was memory. Sometimes, late at night, she still dreamed of Ty, of his laughter, of the way his eyes looked at her like she was the only person in the world. She had learned to live without him, but she had never learned to forget him. As she neared the altar, Jack's gaze shifted toward the barn, catching a flicker of movement. A shadow. He blinked, shaking the thought away. Probably nothing, he told himself. But the air grew heavier, the breeze colder. Somewhere deep down, the earth seemed to hold its breath. Amy reached Nathan. He smiled, reaching for her hands. "You look beautiful," he whispered. She smiled back, her voice barely holding steady. "Thank you," the minister began to speak. Words about love and forever and trust, words Amy wanted to believe in. Then, just as she was about to say "I do," the creaking sound of the doors behind her echoed through the silence. The violin stopped. The guests turned, and Amy froze. Her eyes widened as she saw him. The man she had buried in her heart years ago. Standing there, alive, real, and looking straight at her. Ty Borden. No one moved. Not a single breath dared to break the silence that wrapped around the ranch like a ghost. The wind stopped, the music vanished, and all that was left was the heavy sound of disbelief. Amy's bouquet slipped from her trembling hands, falling to the ground in slow motion, petals scattering like broken promises. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. It couldn't be. It shouldn't be. Ty Borden, the man she had mourned, the man she had buried in her soul, was standing right there. At the edge of her new beginning, he looked different, older, rougher, shadows carved deep into his face. His once soft eyes now carried something hard, something haunted. His hair was longer, a faint scar marked the side of his temple. His clothes were dusty, as if he had traveled through miles of pain to reach this very spot. But beneath all that, Amy saw him, the Ty she had loved. the Ty she had lost. The guests began whispering, disbelief rippling through the crowd. "It can't be him," someone muttered. "He's dead, isn't he?" Lou covered her mouth, tears already streaming down her cheeks. Jack's jaw tightened, and Tim instinctively stepped forward, shielding Amy without even realizing it. Nathan stood frozen beside her, confusion twisting into something darker. Fear. Ty took one step forward. His voice, low and rough, broke the silence. "Amy." Her name came out like a prayer, soft, broken, full of everything he had held back for years. The sound of it cracked something inside her. She wanted to run to him, to touch his face, to make sure he was real. But her feet wouldn't move. Nathan's voice cut through the tension, sharp and defensive. "Who the hell are you?" he snapped, though he already knew. Amy's silence said everything. Ty's eyes flicked to him, and for a heartbeat, two worlds collided, past and present, truth and lie. "You know exactly who I am," Ty said quietly, "and you've got a lot to answer for." A murmur spread among the guests. The minister stepped back, unsure whether to continue or flee. Jack moved closer to Amy, his weathered hand brushing her shoulder. "Is it really you, Ty?" he asked, voice trembling. Ty nodded once. "Yeah, Jack, it's me." Amy's lips parted, words caught in her throat. How are you alive?" Her voice cracked on the last word. Ty looked at her, really looked at her, and the weight of all those years hung between them. "It's a long story," he said softly, eyes flickering to Nathan. "But I think your groom knows more about it than I do," the crowd gasped. Nathan's face went pale, his jaw clenching. "That's enough," he hissed, taking Amy's arm, but she pulled away. Her heart was racing, her mind spinning. What did Ty mean? What did Nathan know? Ty stepped forward again, his tone steady but sharp. "You told her I was dead," he said, voice trembling with anger. "You let her believe it. Why?" Nathan didn't respond. His silence was louder than any denial. Amy turned toward Nathan, eyes wide with confusion and fear. "Nathan, tell me he's lying." But Nathan's eyes darted away, avoiding her gaze. That was all the answer she needed. The crowd whispered louder now, the wedding forgotten, the air thick with betrayal. Amy felt the ground sway beneath her. Her world, the one she'd rebuilt piece by piece, was breaking again. And the man she thought she'd lost forever was the one holding the truth that could destroy it all. Ty's eyes softened as he looked at her. "I didn't come here to ruin your day," he said quietly. "But you deserve to know the truth." The camera lingers on Amy's face, shock, heartbreak, and a flicker of something else. Hope. The ranch had never felt this cold. The guests sat frozen, their joy turning to disbelief. A few tried to whisper, but even their voices trembled. The wedding that was supposed to bring two souls together now stood on the edge of something far darker. Amy's white dress fluttered in the breeze, her veil half torn from her hair like purity unraveling right before everyone's eyes. Ty's gaze locked on Nathan. There was no anger in it now, only truth, raw, heavy, unstoppable. "You owe her the truth," Ty said, his voice steady. Nathan didn't move. His lips twitched, his hand clenched at his side. But his eyes gave him away. Amy turned toward him, her voice breaking. "Nathan, what is he talking about?" Nathan finally looked up, his face pale, but his mask still holding. "Amy, don't listen to him. He's lying. He's trying to destroy us." His tone was calm, to calm the way someone speaks when they've rehearsed a lie for far too long. Ty took another step forward. "You told her I was dead. You told everyone I was gone because that made it easier for you to step into my life." His voice grew harder, sharper. "But you knew I wasn't dead, didn't you?" Nathan's jaw tightened. "I did what I had to do," he said finally. The crowd gasped. Amy blinked, not sure she had heard him right. "What you had to do?" she whispered. "You lied about him being dead, Nathan. You let me grieve for years." Nathan's expression twisted, half guilt, half frustration. "Amy, you don't understand. He was gone. He left. You were broken. I was there for you. I loved you enough to keep you from the pain of knowing he walked away." Ty's voice cracked. Walked away? You think I wanted to leave? You think I chose that? He took a deep breath, his anger fighting to stay contained. I was hurt, Amy. Badly. The accident wasn't just some random event. It was planned. Someone wanted me out of the picture. And when I woke up, miles away, barely alive, someone had already told the world I was dead. Amy's face went pale. Her lips trembled. Nathan, she said, voice shaking, did you know he was alive? Nathan hesitated. One heartbeat too long. The silence that followed said everything. Lou covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Jack shook his head, his voice low but firm. You played with her heart, boy, he said. You don't mess with love like that. The world felt distant, as if Amy stood inside a dream that had suddenly turned cruel. The music had stopped long ago, but the echo of her heartbeat filled the silence like a drum of disbelief. Everyone was still there. The guests, the flowers, the vows left hanging in the air, but to Amy, it all blurred into nothing. Only two faces remained sharp, Ty's and Nathan's. One from her past, one from her present. One built on truth, one built on lies. And both now stood before her, waiting for her to choose which world she belonged to. Her breath came out in shivers. How could you? She whispered, her voice trembling, not loud enough for the crowd, but enough for both men to hear. Nathan took a step closer, desperate. Amy, I did it because I loved you. I couldn't stand to see you break again. You would have gone looking for him, and maybe you'd never come back. I was trying to save you from yourself. Her eyes glistened, anger and grief mixing like storm clouds ready to burst. You don't save someone by lying to them, Nathan. You don't heal a heart by stealing its truth. Ty's expression softened, pain etched deep in his voice. He didn't just lie to you, Amy. He took away your choice. He took away our chance. His words cracked, the weight of the years breaking through his steady tone. I thought of you every day. Every single day. I tried to find a way back, but someone made sure I couldn't. Amy turned to him, eyes wide and wet. Why didn't you send a message? Anything? A letter? Ty's gaze dropped to the ground. I did, he said quietly. Dozens of them. I wrote every month. I begged for someone to tell you I was alive. But none of them ever reached you. Lou gasped from the side, her voice barely holding. Nathan, did you? Nathan cut her off, his tone sharp and defensive. They were lies. He was gone, Lou. You all saw how Amy fell apart after his death. She wasn't living. She was drowning. I gave her something to hold on to. I gave her peace. Jack's voice rose, steady but cold. Peace built on deceit never lasts, son. Amy's body shook as the truth kept unraveling around her. Every sweet word Nathan had said now tasted bitter. Every moment she had thought was real suddenly felt borrowed. She looked between them, Ty, broken but honest. Nathan, terrified but still clinging to what he'd done. Her mind screamed for answers, but her heart was just tired. The camera closes in on her face, her tears, her confusion, her disbelief. The wind catches her veil, pulling it from her hair, carrying it across the field like a ghost drifting away. Ty takes a slow step forward. I know this isn't easy, he says softly, and I'm not here to take anything from you. I just needed you to know what really happened. Before you made a promise built on someone else's lie. Amy looks at him, really looks, and in that moment, every memory floods back. The way he smiled under the morning sun. The quiet way he'd fix things without being asked. The warmth in his touch when words failed. She remembers the life they had built. Simple, imperfect, but real. Nathan steps closer, voice trembling now. Amy, look at me. What we have, it's real. I've never stopped loving you. Don't let him come back and destroy everything we built. Her eyes flicker between them, one offering truth wrapped in pain, the other comfort wrapped in deception. Her lips quiver, but no words come out. The crowd doesn't breathe. Even the birds have gone silent. Amy closes her eyes, whispering to herself. How do I choose between what's true and what's safe? The camera pans upward, the sky darkening as the sun dips behind the hills. Leaving the wedding bathed in the soft blue of heartbreak, Ty stands still, eyes full of hope but ready for her rejection. Nathan waits, chest rising fast, fear and guilt tangled in his breath. And Amy. She stands between them, her heart split in two. For the first time, she isn't just choosing between two men. She's choosing between who she was and who she wants to be. The crowd didn't know what to do. Some whispered, some cried quietly, others just stared, afraid to even move as if one sound might shatter what was left of the day. The air was thick, too heavy for laughter, too quiet for hope. The wedding that was supposed to be filled with vows and forever now hung on the edge of a single heartbeat. Amy stood there, her eyes lost in the distance, the world fading around her. The arch, the flowers, the smiles, they all blurred into nothing. She could still hear the echo of Ty's voice, soft but trembling with truth. And Nathan's words too, desperate, tangled in fear. Her heart was torn open, but her mind was clearer than ever. She couldn't fix this with forgiveness or a promise. Not today. She turned slowly, her veil slipping from her hair and catching in the wind. Every step she took away from the altar sounded louder than the music that had played before. Each step was a goodbye to the dream of the life she thought she had, and to the illusion she had been living. Nathan reached out, panic flashing across his face. Amy, wait. His voice cracked like glass. He tried to follow, but Jack's firm hand landed on his shoulder. Let her go, Jack said quietly. You've done enough. The words hit harder than any punch. Nathan froze, guilt flooding his eyes. The guests turned their gaze away, unable to look at him. The man who had loved her so much, he destroyed her trust to keep it. Amy kept walking, her footsteps slow but certain. The camera follows behind her, catching the torn hem of her dress dragging through the dirt, the trail of crushed petals beneath her feet. The sky above began to turn gray, clouds swallowing the sunlight like grief swallowing joy. Ty stood motionless, torn between running after her and giving her the space she needed. His voice, soft and low, carried on the wind. Amy. It wasn't a plea. It wasn't even a question. It was a memory spoken aloud, a reminder that despite everything, she still meant everything to him. Amy stopped for a moment, her back still turned to him. She didn't look back. She couldn't. If she did, her heart might not let her walk away. The camera zooms in on her trembling hands, clutching the folds of her dress. She whispers, almost to herself, I can't do this. Not like this. Her words barely reach Ty, but they break him anyway. He lowers his gaze, tears glinting in the fading light. Jack steps closer to him, his voice low, but filled with years of quiet understanding. She needs time, he says. And so do you. Ty nods, silent. He watches as Amy disappears into the horizon, the wind tugging at her hair like it's begging her to stay. The camera lingers on his face, sorrow, relief, love, all mixed into one aching expression. Nathan collapses onto the nearest chair, his head in his hands. The guests begin to leave one by one, their laughter replaced by hushed conversation and uneasy glances. The flowers sway in the cold wind, the candles flicker out one by one, and the aisle that once promised forever now leads to nothing but silence. The shot widens. Amy walking alone across the ranch, her dress glowing faintly under the dim sky. Her footsteps echo faintly, each one softer than the last. Until the sound fades completely, and for the first time in a long while, Heartland goes quiet. No voices, no promises. Just the sound of wind moving through the grass like the land itself. It's holding its breath. Amy doesn't know where she's going. She only knows she can't stay. Not until she finds the truth. Not the kind that's told, but the kind that's felt. The kind that comes after heartbreak. When the noise fades and only honesty remains, the camera fades to black as a faint whisper echoes in the background. Ty's voice, soft and broken. I'll wait for you. However long it takes, the night settled over Heartland, like a heavy blanket, quiet, cold, filled with the kind of silence that only comes after everything falls apart. The wedding lights still flickered faintly in the distance, but Amy was far from them now, sitting alone by the old corral. The stars hung low and dull, their shimmer swallowed by the weight in her chest. The dress that had once symbolized joy now clung to her like a ghost she couldn't escape. She pulled her knees close, her hands shaking. The sound of the horses in the barn was the only thing that reminded her she was still here, still breathing, still real. She closed her eyes, but every time she did, memories came flooding back. Ty's laugh echoing across the ranch. The warmth of his hands when he taught her to ride again. The way he'd look at her like she was something fragile and wild all at once. And then Nathan, his gentle voice, his steady comfort, his lies wrapped in love. 2 men, 2 truths, 1 broken heart. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying a faint scent of rain. Amy took a slow breath, her voice barely a whisper. Why does love always hurt the ones who need it most? She stood and walked toward the barn, her boots crunching softly against the gravel. The familiar smell of hay and wood brought back 1,000 memories. Inside, the light from the old lantern cast soft golden shadows across the walls. Spartan lifted his head, neighing softly as if sensing her pain. She reached out, running her fingers down his mane. You always knew when something was wrong, didn't you, boy? She murmured. On the small table near the saddle rack lay a weathered box, the one Ty had made for her years ago, carved with their initials. She hadn't opened it in years. With trembling hands, she brushed away the dust and slowly lifted the lid. Inside were old photos, a dried wildflower from one of their rides, and tucked at the very bottom, a sealed envelope. The paper was worn, the ink smudged, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Ty's Amy's breath hitched. She hadn't seen that handwriting since before the accident. Her fingers shook as she broke the seal. The letter inside was short, simple, like Ty had written it in a hurry. Amy, if you're reading this, it means I didn't make it back in time. I need you to know I never left you by choice. Someone wanted me gone. Someone close? But don't be afraid. Truth finds its way home, even if I can't. Please remember, love isn't about forever. It's about honesty. I'll always be with you. Tears streamed down her face before she even finished reading. The letter trembled in her hands, the ink bleeding into her tears. Everything he had said at the wedding suddenly made sense. The scars, the silence, the look in his eyes when he said Nathan had answers. This letter was proof. He had tried to reach her. Nathan had taken more than her trust. He had taken years of her life that could never be returned. Amy sank to the ground. Out. The letter clutched against her chest. You never gave up on me, she whispered. The realization burned through her heart like fire and mercy, all at once. Ty had suffered, survived, and still thought of her. That was love, the kind that didn't need vows or promises to exist. The barn door creaked, and the night air swept in, cool and sharp. She didn't look up, but her voice broke through the silence. I know you're out there, Ty, she said softly, and I'm not running anymore. The camera pulls back slowly, Amy kneeling on the barn floor, the lantern flickering beside her, the letter open in her hands. Outside, thunder rumbles faintly over the hills. It's not just a storm coming, it's the truth. And it's heading straight for Heartland. And for the first time since that day, Amy's eyes don't look lost. They look ready. The rain came down hard that night, the kind that didn't ask for permission. Lightning cracked through the sky, flashing over the ranch like a warning. The land that had once felt like home now felt like a battlefield. Every drop that hit the ground carried the tension that had been building for years. Amy stood in the middle of the yard, soaked to the bone, the letter still in her hand. The lanterns from the barn swung wildly in the wind, casting ghost-like shadows across her face. She wasn't the same woman who had stood at the altar that afternoon. Her eyes no longer searched for comfort. They searched for truth. The crunch of tires cut through the storm. Nathan's truck rolled up the muddy path, headlights slicing through the rain. He jumped out, his hair plastered to his face, his voice desperate. Amy, what are you doing out here? She didn't move. She just held up the letter. You knew, she said, her voice steady, but shaking underneath. You knew he was alive. You read this, didn't you? Nathan froze, the color draining from his face. Amy, listen, don't. Her voice rose, echoing across the fields. No more lies. The wind howled behind her, rain slapping against her skin. You kept this from me. You let me cry for a man who was still breathing, Nathan? You let me believe my heart was buried in the ground. Nathan's eyes glistened with rain and guilt. I did it because I loved you. I thought he'd never come back, Amy. I thought you'd finally be happy without the pain. I couldn't lose you. Amy took a step closer, her expression fierce but broken. You never had me, she said. You only had the version of me that didn't know the truth. The thunder boomed behind her, as if the sky itself agreed. From the shadows, another voice emerged, calm, low, and familiar. She deserves better than that. Ty stepped out from the barn, the lightning illuminating his face. He looked tired, wounded, but unshaken. His eyes burned with quiet fire. You played God with people's lives, Nathan. That's not love. That's fear. Nathan's jaw tightened, anger replacing guilt. You don't get to come back here and act like the hero. You left. You died. Ty's voice stayed calm, but it hit like thunder. I was dead because of you. You're the one who made that call, who sent the message that finished what others started. You didn't just lie to Amy, you buried me. Nathan's voice faltered. I never meant, but it was too late. Amy stepped between them, holding up the letter. This is all that's left of who we were, she said softly, eyes flicking between them. A love that was stolen, a truth that was hidden. But it ends tonight. Nathan looked at her, defeated, the storm soaking his suit, his face twisted in regret. Amy, I'm sorry. She nodded, tears mixing with rain. I know. Ty reached out, placing a hand on her shoulder, grounding her. The storm raged, wind whipping around them, but in that moment, everything felt still, raw and real. Amy turned to Nathan one last time. You need to leave, Nathan. Not because I hate you, but because I can't heal with you here. Nathan hesitated, then nodded slowly. Without another word, he walked toward his truck, his figure disappearing into the storm. The sound of his engine faded into the distance. Swallowed by thunder, Ty and Amy stood there, motionless, rain running down their faces. For a long moment, they said nothing. The silence between them wasn't painful anymore. It was peaceful. Amy finally turned to him. You came back, she whispered. Ty smiled faintly, eyes soft. I never really left. The camera pans out, the storm begins to quiet, the rain slowing to a gentle drizzle. The clouds part just enough for the moonlight to fall across Heartland. Amy and Ty stand side by side. Two souls who had lost everything but somehow found their way home again. The voiceover fades in, calm, emotional final. Sometimes love isn't about holding on. It's about finding your way back after being lost. And at Heartland, love always finds its way home. As the screen fades to black, the faint sound of a horse's neigh echoes through the night, a promise that the story isn't over. To be continued, Heartland Season 19, Fanfiction Episode 23.